This video was created using Gemini Notebook to generate audio overview versions of an article titled Ditch That, This and That. Standardize Your Workplace Language, which I, QuietBeef, or Moku-Gyuu in Japanese, originally posted on my blog, QuietBeef, on September 23, 2020. Since the primary content is intended to be heard via audio, the accompanying video is essentially just a placeholder with no specific visual significance. While there are occasional cut-ins of relevant images, missing them won't cause any issues with understanding the material. Please feel free to engage with the content however you prefer, whether by watching or simply listening, or both. This blog post recounts the experiences of QuietBeef, who had been living a rather unusual life since arriving in the US when a sudden critical financial crisis forced QuietBeef to take jobs, first at a Japanese company in Manhattan and then at a restaurant in New Jersey owned and managed by a Japanese national. He was struck by the same thought at both workplaces. What an incredibly inefficient work environment. Of course, no workplace is ever perfect. However, compared to his past experiences working as both a regular employee and a part-timer in Japan, QuietBeef felt something was clearly missing among the staff, including much of the management. This article, written in QuietBeef's signature rough and ready style, explores exactly what that something was. One major issue was that many Japanese staff members lacked a sense of professional responsibility and the requisite foundational skills. Linked to this was the fact that most staff members had not developed or failed to master the ability to articulate concepts clearly during on-the-job training, OJT. Furthermore, and perhaps most critically, there was a lack of standardization regarding the tools and technical terminology used in the workplace. Most people can manage to speak about what they know exactly as they understand it, but this is inefficient and makes it difficult for others to comprehend. After all, what is expected of someone with a university degree, bachelor's level or higher, is the ability to explain what they know in a way that others can understand. More than 80% of the staff and management lacked this ability. As for the management, their understanding of their own professional responsibilities and local labor laws was shockingly poor. Toxic management, including the creation of hostile work environments, HWE, was rampant, and they would brazenly commit egregious violations of federal labor laws, leaving QuietBeef utterly exasperated. The situation was particularly dire in places like restaurants, where many staff members struggled with the local language and had limited educational backgrounds. There were also many, including yours truly, dealing with issues related to neurodivergence. For these workers, simply showing up to the job was already exhausting enough. Yet they faced a hellish environment where the owner-manager seemed to relish a management style akin to that of a tyrant or a prison guard, finding as much fulfillment in tormenting employees as in running the business itself. What made this already terrible work environment even more unbearable was the lack of standardized terminology for tools and tasks. The workplace was filled with vague demonstratives like this, that, and which one. Given the high staff turnover typical of the industry, it is no wonder that most low-skill, part-time newcomers couldn't even master tasks requiring just a slightly higher level of competence. To top it all off, the owner-manager was a hopeless case with a truly toxic personality. He refused to learn the local language, looked down on and loathed those who spoke it, and detested both the local people and the United States itself. Ironically, his business was successful, and he had amassed considerable wealth. In a way, the fact that such a person can still succeed might be American in a positive sense. Oops. I seem to be falling into a pattern where the narration for the video introduction gets increasingly long-winded with each installment. Please forgive this quirk, chalk it up to my neurodivergence. Anyway, without further ado, let's get started.
I want you to take a second right now and think back to the absolute worst job you've ever had.
Oh, we all have one.
Right, we all have that one job.
Yeah.
And specifically, I want you to picture the worst manager you've ever had to work under. You know exactly the one I'm talking about.
Yep, the one whose face just popped into your head.
Exactly. Now, as you're picturing this person, I want to ask you a question about them. Did that manager make your life miserable because they were, genuinely incompetent? Like maybe they were just in over their head and didn't really know how to run things.
Which is super common, by the way.
Super common. And really think about this for a second. Did they actually seem to, enjoy the chaos? Did they actively prefer a workplace where everyone was stressed out, confused, and just constantly walking on eggshells?
That is the crucial distinction right there.
Yeah.
Because when you realize a manager is actually deriving some sort of, psychological payoff from the suffering and confusion of their team, it completely changes how you understand workplace toxicity.
House.
Because, look, Incompetence is something you can train.
Right.
You can hand an incompetent person a better manual or put them through a workshop or, just give them a mentor.
Right, you can fix a lack of skill.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But a manager who literally needs their employees to be confused so they can play the role of the savior or, the punisher, that is an entirely different beast. And it is incredibly difficult to spot when you are the one who's trapped inside the structure that they've built.
And that is exactly what we are dissecting today on this deep dive. We are pulling from a really fascinating, incredibly candid, and highly cynical piece of source material.
Very cynical.
Yeah, extremely. It's a blog post written by an author who goes by the handle QuietBeef.
Great name.
I know, it's great. And the post is titled, "If you just say this or that, nobody understands." And I want to be clear right off the bat. We aren't looking at some polished, sanitized Harvard Business Review article that went through like 3 different PR committees.
Definitely not.
No, we are looking at a gritty, unfiltered, first-hand account from someone who was brought in to manage a Japanese-owned business operating abroad. The author uses a pseudonym for the business, calling it a Tanchi coconut shop.
Which, just based on the context, seems to be a stand-in for a really fast-paced, highly chaotic food or retail environment.
Right, like a busy restaurant or cafe. And the tone that QuietBeef takes here, it's really crucial to understanding the material.
It is, because the author is not holding back at all. This text is a blend of incredibly sharp, almost sociological business critique, but it's wrapped in a really thick layer of personal frustration.
It almost reads like a venting session.
It functions exactly like a venting session.
Yeah.
But buried within all that venting are some of the most profound, unvarnished insights into toxic management that you'll ever read. It gets into the hidden psychology behind why people are so terrible at training new hires, and it actually proposes a surprisingly beautiful framework for building a functional, inclusive workplace.
I like to think of what we are doing today as an autopsy of a failed business culture.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
We are going to peel back the layers of this toxic Tanchi coconut shop to see exactly which organizational organs failed, how the disease spread from the owner all the way down to the newest trainee on the floor, and what the ultimate cause of death was. And spoiler alert for you listening, it was not a lack of hard work.
No, not at all. It was an excess of a very specific, very poisonous type of work.
So let's get into it.
Right. So to understand the dysfunction of this entire operation, we have to start by understanding the architect of that dysfunction. The text gives us this highly detailed psychological profile of the owner-manager that QuietBeef was actually hired to work under.
The guy running the shop?
Yep. The author calls this manager a demon reincarnation of the outdated, old-school Japanese corporate man, but imported directly into a foreign country.
Okay, demon reincarnation paints quite a picture. Let's break down what QuietBeef actually means by that, because the post lists out the specific traits of this guy.
And they are pretty wild.
They are. So first of all, QuietBeef describes a manager who works literally 365 days a year.
No days off.
0. The routine never changes. He opens the shop, he spends all day micromanaging every single detail on the floor, he closes the shop, he goes home, he sleeps, and he comes right back to do it again the very next morning. There are no weekends, no holidays, no sick days.
Just a relentless grind.
Right, and QuietBeef lists a few other distinct traits that define this guy. He has an abnormal hatred for the local, non-Japanese people in the country he's operating in.
Which is a huge problem if you're running a local business.
Exactly. And on top of that, he also hates other Japanese expats who actually speak the local language fluently.
Oh, so he resents people who can actually communicate.
Yep. He absolutely refuses to update his own skills or his mindset from the moment he left his home country decades ago. He refuses to learn anything about the local culture, and he just looks down on absolutely everything around him.
It really is a profile of someone who is fundamentally terrified of the outside world, so they build a fortress.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that phrase, demon reincarnation, it suggests an archetype that really should have died out in a past era. Like the post-war corporate warrior who literally gave their entire existence to the company. But here, that archetype has been unnaturally resurrected in a modern, foreign environment where it absolutely does not belong. And because it doesn't belong, it actively causes harm.
Okay, here is where I want to play devil's advocate for a second, though.
Go for it.
Look at that 365-day-a-year schedule. Open, close, sleep, repeat. A lot of traditional business cultures, and certainly a massive chunk of modern, hustle culture entrepreneurs, they would look at that and say, that is the ultimate sign of dedication.
Oh, absolutely. They praise him.
Right. They'd say, this guy is in the trenches. He isn't some absentee owner out on a golf course. He's bleeding for his business. Why does the author frame this manager's constant presence as the core pathology, rather than just a really commendable work ethic?
That's a totally fair question. And it's because the text makes it explicitly clear that this constant presence is not about dedication to the business's success. It is a symptom of a deep, pathological refusal to delegate.
Okay.
Yeah, the manager's entire philosophy, the very first thing he tells QuietBeef about how to handle the staff is this: These employees will slack off the second you look away. Therefore, you must constantly surveil them.
Wow.
Yeah. He doesn't manage for efficiency, and he certainly doesn't manage for growth. He manages for absolute control. The author uses a very deliberate analogy here, comparing the manager's mindset directly to that of a prison guard managing inmates.
A prison guard. Man, you are building a team, you are running a cell block.
And if you're running a cell block, your physical presence is literally the only thing keeping the inmates in line.
Because the moment the guard leaves, the riot starts.
Exactly. The manager has zero life outside the walls of that shop. No hobbies, no community, no cultural engagement in this foreign country. The shop has become his entire kingdom. If he isn't there, he is nobody. He needs to be the indispensable center of the universe.
It's his whole identity.
Yes. QuietBeef notes how this manager constantly complains to others, whining about how nobody can do anything without him, how he can never take a single day off.
About the martyr routine, we have all worked with someone like that.
Oh, for sure.
They sigh super loudly while doing a task they easily could have trained someone else to do weeks ago.
Exactly. It is an ego trip disguised as martyrdom. He complains about having to do everything, but secretly, he enjoys the total dependency of his staff.
He needs them to need him.
Yes, he gets a rush from the power trip of controlling others, of dispensing these petty punishments, of being the sole arbiter of right and wrong on the floor. And QuietBeef astutely points out that this dynamic mirrors the toxic bullying you sometimes find in traditional hierarchical school clubs or fraternities.
Right, like hazing.
Exactly like hazing. The upperclassmen were bullied when they were younger, so they turn around and bully the underclassmen. The power dynamic feels good to a certain type of really fragile ego. The manager doesn't want the shop to run smoothly without him. He wants the shop to be utterly paralyzed without him, because that paralysis validates his existence.
So he is intentionally creating a bottleneck.
100%.
The business can only ever be as capable as this one guy who, frankly, refuses to learn anything new. And if his baseline assumption is that all his employees are inmates who are just trying to escape work, he is going to build a system designed to catch them failing, rather than a system designed to help them succeed.
Yep. He expects failure, so he engineers the environment to produce it.
Which brings us to the actual day-to-day operations on the floor. If the core philosophy of leadership is control and surveillance, well, there is zero incentive to empower the workers with knowledge. Knowledge is power, and the prison guard wants to keep all the power for himself.
Exactly. And that leads directly to the breakdown of basic functional communication in the shop.
Which is where we get the title of the blog post, right? If you just say this or that, nobody understands.
Yes. QuietBeef details the absolute linguistic chaos in this workplace.
It sounds like a nightmare. There is no unified terminology for anything. Not for the tools, not for the physical spaces, not even for the software applications they use. The entire staff relies on these vague pronouns. Someone will just shout across the room, "Bring me this," or "Put it over there, click on that."
And you have new hires walking into a space where the existing staff is essentially speaking in a highly localized, completely impenetrable code.
Right. And the text illustrates this with a specific, highly detailed example of on-the-job training, or OJT. And it's so painful to read.
It really is. QuietBeef describes a scenario where a senior staff member is supposed to be training a rookie on the computer system.
And the setup itself is just an exercise in asserting dominance.
Totally. The senior staff member doesn't pull up a chair next to the trainee. They don't engage in any kind of side-by-side collaborative posture, which is what you'd expect in normal training.
No, instead, the senior staffer sits lazily in a chair directly behind the trainee's back.
Yeah, just picturing the body language is infuriating.
It is. The trainer is slouched back, totally disengaged, and from behind the trainee's back, they just point vaguely over the trainee's shoulder at the computer monitor and yell, "Click that!"
And the trainee, whose back is to the trainer, physically cannot see where the finger is pointing.
They have no frame of reference whatsoever.
None. So the trainee starts to panic. They move the mouse aimlessly around the screen asking, here. And the senior staffer gets immediately annoyed.
Of course they do.
They raise their voice. No, not there. That, the yellow square. The trainee is completely terrified at this point. They are guessing, they're failing, and the trainer's just sighing loudly, treating them like they are exceptionally stupid.
I mean, QuietBeef uses this microcosm to break down the underlying psychology of the bad trainer. And I think this is such a brilliant insight. Why does the senior staff member become instantly hostile? Why do they resort to yelling about a yellow square instead of simply leaning forward and saying, "Click the submit order button in the top right corner"?
Right, because I would think it takes way more energy to get angry and yell about abstract shapes than it does to just use the actual name of the button.
Exactly. So why the hostility?
Because explaining a task that has become muscle memory to you requires a very specific cognitive effort.
Okay, unpack that for me.
It requires you to translate your vague internal mental images, your own internal this and that, into concrete, descriptive, standardized language. And the harsh reality that QuietBeef highlights here is that most people are fundamentally incapable of doing this without intentional effort and actual training.
It's the curse of knowledge.
Exactly.
Once you know how to do something instinctively, it is incredibly difficult to reverse engineer your brain to imagine what it is like to not know it.
The senior staff member knows the software so intimately that they no longer even read the text on the screen. Their brain just recognizes the spatial reality. Click the yellow box in the top right to make the ticket go away.
They aren't reading words, they're just seeing shapes and colors.
Right. But when a rookie arrives and asks a clarifying question, the trainer is suddenly confronted with a demand to articulate their knowledge verbally. And when they realize they cannot easily explain the steps, they experience a sudden, sharp blow to their ego.
Because they're the expert, but they can't explain it.
Yes, they are confronted with their own incompetence at communication.
Oh, that makes so much sense. Let me try an analogy here to see if I'm tracking this.
Yeah, please do.
Imagine the senior staffer's brain is a messy junk drawer in your kitchen.
Okay, everybody has one of those.
Right. If it's your junk drawer, you know exactly where everything is by feel. You know that if you push past the handful of loose thumbtacks and move the dead AA batteries and reach behind those old soy sauce packets, you'll find the good scissors.
Yeah, but you don't even have to look.
Exactly. You don't have an organizational system. You just have muscle memory. Now imagine someone asks you to draw a map of that junk drawer so a total stranger can find the scissors.
Oh, you would fail.
Yeah.
The map would be completely incomprehensible.
Completely incomprehensible. But instead of the trainer looking at the map they just drew and admitting, wow, my drawer is a total disaster and I don't know how to explain it, the trainer looks at the stranger who is failing to read the terrible map and says, what is wrong with you? Why can't you just find the scissors? You must be an idiot.
Yes, that is exactly what is happening. To avoid the ego blow of realizing they are a terrible teacher, the trainer decides that the rookie is the problem.
It's self-preservation.
Purely. The rookie is annoying, they're incompetent, and they deserve the frustration directed at them. It justifies the trainer's hostility. The trainer protects their fragile self-esteem by shifting the blame onto the new hire.
And then you have to factor in the overarching culture set by the manager, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Because the manager has already established that employees are inmates who need to be punished. So the senior staff member is just adopting the manager's prison guard mindset and applying it to the trainee. It becomes this institutionalized bullying disguised as training.
And QuietBeef makes a really crucial pivot here in the text. This communication failure doesn't just stop at telling someone how to click a mouse or find a spatula. It completely infects the social and physical orientation of a new hire.
Right. It's not just about the tasks.
No, it's about their entire existence in the workplace. And this brings us to a concept in the source material that, for me, completely reframes how we think about onboarding. It's the concept of the brain resource drain.
The brain resource drain. I love this part. QuietBeef transitions from diagnosing the toxic behavior to explaining the actual quantifiable operational damage it does to a business.
Yeah, moving from the psychological to the practical.
Exactly. The author notes that in these toxic workplaces, and they specifically mention the Japanese-led ones abroad, they are critiquing, though I think this applies universally, they completely fail at the absolute basics of welcoming a human being.
They fail at day one, minute one.
Yes. They do not give the new hire a physical tour of the workplace. They don't show them where the bathroom is, where the break room is, or where the emergency exits are. Furthermore, the existing staff almost never introduce themselves to the new person.
The existing staff will just ignore them.
Literally just stand there and ignore them. They cling to this rigid, outdated cultural norm that says the rookie must politely introduce themselves first.
Right. The senior staff will literally just stand around, staring at the new person, waiting for the rookie to approach them, bow or shake hands, and perform this whole ritual of submission.
It is a hazing ritual based entirely on establishing hierarchy before any actual work is even attempted.
Now, I can hear a lot of veteran managers or old school shift leads listening to us talk right now and rolling their eyes.
Oh, totally. I can hear it too.
They might be thinking, oh, come on. We are adults here. Is it really the company's job to hold a new hire's hand and coddle them? Shouldn't a capable employee take a little initiative to figure out where the bathroom is and just walk up and say hello? I mean, if they can't handle saying hello, how are they going to handle a Saturday night dinner rush?
That is the classic argument. It's character building, right?
Right. It is the most common defense of toxic onboarding out there.
But QuietBeef dismantles it. And they do it not by appealing to empathy or fairness, which is what you'd expect.
No, they don't care about fairness.
They appeal to pure, cold, operational efficiency. And this is where the concept of brain resources is so vital.
Let's get into the battery analogy because that made it click for me.
Okay, yeah. Think of a new hire's cognitive capacity like a smartphone battery.
Okay.
When they walk through the door on day one, they have a 100% charge.
Full battery. Full battery. The absolute highest and best use of that battery is spending all 100% of it on learning the actual job. How to operate the machinery, how to prep the ingredients, how to interface with the customer.
You want them spending their battery on the things that actually make the business money.
Precisely. But if a new hire doesn't know where the bathroom is, or what the supply closet is even called, or who the person standing 2 feet next to them is, their mental energy, their brain resource starts draining rapidly in the background.
They are experiencing a constant state of low-level anxiety.
Exactly. Their internal monologue is entirely consumed by questions like, is that guy over there the boss? Am I allowed to speak to him? Am I allowed to go into that room behind the counter? If my pen runs out of ink, who do I even ask without getting yelled at?
It's like having 20 high-processing apps open on your phone, running in the background, draining the battery while you were trying to make an important phone call.
That's a perfect way to put it. They are so consumed with the terror of making a social faux pas, of breaking some unwritten rule and getting humiliated, that their actual cognitive capacity to absorb job training plummets. It drops from 100% down to maybe 20%.
Wow.
They literally cannot form the memories required to learn the software because their brain is fully engaged in a threat assessment protocol regarding the senior staff.
They're in fight or flight mode, not learning mode.
Exactly. And that framing completely destroys the coddling argument. It isn't about being nice to the new guy.
It is about protecting the company's investment in that employee.
Yes, allowing a new hire to waste their brain power on easily solvable social stress is a massive operational inefficiency. It costs the business time, causes errors, and it absolutely drives up turnover.
So what does a good senior staff member do, according to the author?
The author argues that a truly competent senior staff member eliminates these stressors immediately upon arrival. Minute 1. They give the physical tour, they introduce themselves warmly, they explicitly state all the unwritten rules right away so there's no guessing.
They clear the mental runway.
They clear the mental runway so the rookie can dedicate 100% of their cognitive resources to learning the actual work.
So if you are a senior staff member and you are intentionally withholding a friendly introduction because you want the rookie to earn their stripes or show respect, you are actively sabotaging the company's training timeline just to stroke your own ego.
Yes, you are stealing company time to fund your power trip.
That is a brutal way to put it, but it's so true.
QuietBeef is emphatic on this point. A trainer who sits down, crosses their legs, points vaguely, and relies on intimidation is fundamentally incompetent and should be fired.
Fired immediately, according to the author.
Yep, because they are a net negative to the operation.
Okay, so having so clearly diagnosed these catastrophic failures in training and communication, the source material then pivots to the author's proposed solutions.
Right, QuietBeef doesn't just complain. They actually offer a comprehensive framework for radical clarity.
And the name of this framework is provocative. The author insists that trainers must adopt the third-grade foreigner framework.
I know, it sounds a bit intense.
When I first read Treat Them Like a Third Grader, my immediate reaction was to recoil. I mean, isn't that incredibly demeaning? Isn't that talking down to your employees in a way that would just breed instant resentment?
That's the natural reaction. But to understand why it isn't actually demeaning, we have to look at the underlying assumption the author is trying to break.
Okay, break that down for me.
In a homogenous environment, whether it is a workplace where everyone is from the same country, or even just a small restaurant where the core staff has been working together for 5 years, there is a pervasive, unspoken assumption. And that assumption is, we share a background, therefore you should just intuitively understand my context.
Ah, right. It's an over-reliance on shared implicit knowledge.
Exactly. The assumption is, I shouldn't have to explain every little detail because we share the same common sense.
But common sense isn't actually common if you're new.
Precisely. QuietBeef argues that this assumption is organizational poison. You must drop it entirely. Instead, you must treat every single new hire, regardless of their age, their background, or their apparent competence, as if they were a third-grade foreign exchange student.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning you assume they know absolutely zero about your specific environment, your local terminology, or your social dynamics.
Yeah.
You have to explain everything explicitly, simply, and without any judgment that they don't already know it.
The text provides 2 specific examples of instruction that totally changed my mind on this framework. It is the literal difference between setting someone up for failure and guaranteeing their success.
Let's look at the first example, which is the bad instruction.
Okay, let's hear it. This is the typical way things are communicated in the toxic shop. A senior staffer barks at a trainee, go to the room with the brown table and get Charlie.
Okay, let's analyze the multiple points of failure in that single sentence. First, the room with the brown table relies entirely on subjective visual interpretation.
Right. To a panicked rookie, under bad fluorescent kitchen lighting, maybe all the tables look black.
Or maybe there are 3 different rooms that happen to have brown tables in them.
Very possible.
Second,
Yeah.
get Charlie assumes the rookie knows who Charlie is, what he looks like, and crucially, feels socially comfortable interrupting him while he's working.
So the rookie wanders off, gets lost, interrupts the wrong person, fails the task, and inevitably gets yelled at.
Exactly. Now contrast that with QuietBeef's good instruction, which utilizes the third-grade foreigner framework.
Okay, here is the good instruction. A trainer says, go to room A across from the vending machine where you bought water. Ask for Charles Zhang. He goes by Charlie. He's the 6-foot-tall guy with black hair and a ponytail. He's friendly and used to our English, so don't worry.
If we break down the psychology of that instruction, it is an absolute masterclass in management.
It really is.
First, it removes subjective descriptions. It's not the brown table room anymore. It is standardized as room A. Second, it provides undeniable physical anchors. It uses a landmark the trainee already interacted with the vending machine and gives physical descriptions that literally cannot be misinterpreted. 6 foot tall, black hair, ponytail.
You could be from another planet and you could successfully locate the guy with the ponytail standing next to the vending machine.
But the most crucial part of that instruction is the final sentence.
He's friendly, so don't worry.
Yes.
That is the part that blew my mind, the emotional padding.
That is the active management of those brain resources we were just talking about. The trainer isn't just giving physical directions, they are actively disarming the trainee's social anxiety.
They are giving the rookie explicit psychological permission to approach a senior staff member without fear of being rebuffed or mocked.
Exactly. By proactively addressing the emotional state of the trainee, the trainer guarantees the task will be executed swiftly and accurately.
My analogy for this framework is getting directions in a strange city. Imagine you ask a local for directions. The local gives you the bad instruction. They say, oh, just head down this road and turn left where the old red barn used to be, then veer right at the miller's place.
Which is worse than useless. The barn burned down 10 years ago, and you obviously don't know who the millers are. The local is relying entirely on their internal historical context.
You are guaranteed to get lost. But QuietBeef's framework is like having a perfectly programmed GPS.
Ooh, yes.
The GPS doesn't assume you know the history of the town. It says, in 500 feet, use the left 2 lanes to turn left onto Elm Street. There is a gas station on the corner. It gives you standardized names, distances, visual anchors, and tells you exactly what to expect. And the GPS never sighs or rolls its eyes at you for not knowing the way. It just recalculates and guides you.
That is a brilliant way to look at it. But QuietBeef also recognizes that you cannot just hope your staff will suddenly start communicating like a perfectly programmed GPS.
Right, because human nature defaults to the messy junk drawer.
Exactly. You have to build structural solutions to force the behavior. The author proposes making physical and digital maps of the workplace, standardizing all the terminology so no more this or that, everything has an official name.
And creating manuals that are shared on the cloud so any employee can quietly check them on their mobile phone at any time without having to risk asking a hostile senior staffer.
Yes, and the author goes even further, suggesting that you must explicitly tie these training skills to a worker's job description, their JD, and their actual salary.
This is where I wonder about feasibility. I mean, can you really make being a nice trainer a key performance indicator that determines someone's pay?
See, but it isn't about being nice. It is about clarity and efficiency. Being a good trainer who uses standardized language and reduces trainee anxiety shouldn't just be a bonus trait. It should be a core metric of operational performance.
So it's as important as making the food correctly.
Exactly. If you are a senior cook who can make the food perfectly, but you cause 3 new hires to quit because you yell at them about yellow squares, you are actively costing the company money.
Your liability.
QuietBeef argues you reward the staff who train well, and the senior staff who refuse, the ones who want to sit behind people, cross their legs and point vaguely, you penalize them. You freeze their wages or you fire them. You literally change the financial incentives to force clear communication.
It is a deeply pragmatic way to fix a culture. But as QuietBeef develops this framework of ultra-clear, standardized, stress-free communication, the text takes a really fascinating turn.
It does.
The author realizes that this framework doesn't just help standard new hires get up to speed faster, it accidentally solves a massive problem for an entirely different group of people.
Yes. When you standardize communication this rigidly, you inadvertently make the workplace accessible to neurodivergent workers.
This is perhaps the most profound insight in the entire source text. QuietBeef observes that the food service industry, and specifically these smaller, somewhat chaotic shops, naturally attract a lot of what the author calls clunky staff.
Now, we need to acknowledge the language here. The author uses some pretty harsh, cynical terminology.
Yeah, they describe these workplaces as a dumping ground for people who couldn't cut it in pristine corporate environments or traditional office settings.
The tone remains very gritty, yes. But the substance of what the author is observing is incredibly progressive. QuietBeef breaks down this idea of clunky staff and realizes that what they're actually looking at is an unrecognized, unsupported, neurodivergent workforce.
The author explicitly lists people with ADHD, Asperger's, mild intellectual disabilities, and highly sensitive persons.
People whose brains simply process information differently. And these are the exact people who get absolutely crushed by the vague, socially complex, figured-out-yourself culture of the prison guard manager.
Because a culture of this and that relies heavily on reading social cues, interpreting tone, and navigating unwritten rules.
Right. If you struggle with executive dysfunction, or if you take things very literally, a vague instruction is paralyzing.
But QuietBeef proposes a radical shift in perspective here. If you implement the third-grade foreigner framework, if you standardize the names, simplify the workflows, remove all the unspoken social rules, and create crystal clear step-by-step methods suddenly, these clunky staff members are no longer liabilities.
In fact, they can outperform everyone else on the floor.
Because you've removed the specific friction, the vague social anxiety that was holding them back, you are finally letting them just do the work.
The author argues that if you design the system right, you will see massive boosts in productivity and product consistency. To explain this, QuietBeef uses a really striking metaphor. The author asks us to imagine a blind person and a deaf person working together in a factory.
Let's explore this because it gets right to the heart of the management philosophy. A toxic manager, like the demon reincarnation, would look at a blind person and a deaf person and say, these people are broken, they can't do the job. The toxic manager expects every employee to be perfectly well-rounded, capable of seeing everything, hearing everything, and anticipating the manager's every vague whim. If you can't do it all, you are useless to them.
But QuietBeef says, no, look at their specific capabilities. The deaf person cannot hear, but they have excellent eyesight. So you assign them the task of looking for visual errors on a checklist or a product line. The blind person cannot see, but they have excellent hearing. So you position them by the factory motor, and you have them listen to the pitch of the machine to ensure it is running at the exact right speed.
How does that metaphor apply specifically to the Tanchi coconut shop? What does that actually look like in a fast casual restaurant environment?
Think about the neurodivergent traits QuietBeef mentioned. You might have a highly sensitive person who gets easily overwhelmed by loud noises and angry customers. The toxic manager puts them on the front register, watches them have a panic attack, and calls them weak.
Which is terrible.
It is. But QuietBeef's system would take that highly sensitive person, recognize their extreme attention to detail, and put them in the back, doing quality control on the inventory or precise prep work, where they will spot errors no one else sees.
Meanwhile, you take the employee with ADHD, who craves high stimulation and moves 1,000,000 miles an hour, and you put them on the front counter during the lunch rush.
It's brilliant. You aren't forcing the ADHD employee to sit still and do inventory, and you aren't forcing the highly sensitive person to get yelled at by customers. You are matching the task to their specific, exceptional capability.
By doing so, you completely eliminate the friction. The author calls this creating an ensemble, like an orchestra. You don't need the tuba player to play the violin. You need them to play the tuba perfectly at the exact right moment.
The workplace shouldn't be a competition to see who can survive the most vague abuse. It should be an ensemble of distinct, specialized capabilities working in harmony.
I have to pause here because I'm struggling to reconcile two very different things in this text.
What's that?
On one hand, the author uses this really harsh language, calling staff clunky, saying the shop is a dumping ground, calling the managers idiots. It's deeply cynical. But on the other hand, the actual framework being proposed, this ensemble idea, the deep understanding of neurodiversity, the desire to protect the mental health of new hires, is incredibly progressive and empathetic.
It is.
How do we reconcile this intense cynicism with this surprisingly beautiful view on employment?
That tension is the central paradox of QuietBeef as an author, and honestly, it is what elevates this source material from a simple rant into a truly profound piece of writing. The author is deeply, almost terminally, frustrated and cynical about the managers, the people who hold power, and actively refuse to use it well. But underneath that thick armor of cynicism, the author possesses immense, highly practical empathy for the workers, the people at the bottom who are suffering under these bad systems.
It's like a battlefield medic who swears constantly, chain smokes, and absolutely hates the generals who started the war, but will stay up for 3 days straight, meticulously stitching up a wounded private.
That is exactly it. That's a perfect image. And the author acknowledges this paradox directly in the text. QuietBeef references John Lennon's song Imagine.
Right.
The idea of everyone working together in a perfect ensemble sounds like a utopian dream. You may say I'm a dreamer. The author admits that realistically, human beings naturally tend toward dissonance, cruelty, and selfishness. It's a survival strategy when resources or power are scarce.
The text mentions the prisoner's dilemma here to explain that dissonance.
Yes. The prisoner's dilemma is a concept in game theory where individuals act in their own self-interest even if cooperating would result in a better outcome for everyone. Think about the kitchen staff. If the senior trainer hoards their knowledge and acts hostile, they win in the short term, they protect their ego and establish dominance.
And the trainee loses.
Right. But if both the trainer and the trainee cooperate, the whole shop runs smoother, tips go up, and everyone goes home earlier. The problem is, because the toxic manager has created an environment of fear, everyone defaults to hoarding power. They're playing the prisoner's dilemma and choosing self-interest, which creates natural dissonance.
Dissonance is the natural state of a poorly managed group of humans.
Exactly. And QuietBeef also references the curse of Pythagoras to really drive this point home.
Remind me about Pythagoras.
Pythagoras was the ancient Greek mathematician who was obsessed with the idea that the universe was made of perfect, rational numbers and total harmony. They practically had a math cult. But according to legend, one of his followers, a guy named Hippasus, discovered irrational numbers that go on forever without repeating, like pi.
They didn't fit the perfect system.
No, they didn't. And the myth goes that the Pythagoreans were so terrified of this dissonance, so angry that their perfect system was flawed, that they literally drowned Hippasus at sea to protect their worldview.
They murdered the guy who pointed out the flaw in the perfect system.
Yes. And the author is using this story to say that human nature leans toward irrationality and dissonance, and people will violently reject harmony if it threatens their established, comfortable worldview. True productivity and true workplace peace requires the immense intentional effort of building the ensemble despite our base instincts to be cruel to each other.
It's a heavy philosophical load for a blog post about a coconut shop, but it's a beautiful vision for what a workplace could be. You design a system so clear, so standardized, and so devoid of ego that anyone, no matter how clunky or neurodivergent, can thrive and contribute.
It's a great vision.
So if QuietBeef designed this perfect, highly efficient, stress-reducing workflow, what was the happy ending? Did profits soar? Did the demon reincarnation manager see the light and change his ways?
The answer is no.
No.
There was no happy ending. The conclusion of this blog post is profoundly tragic.
Wait, really? What happened?
QuietBeef takes this entire framework, the standardized communication, the mapped out workflows, the norm-inclusive ensemble design, and presents it to the manager. And the manager completely rejects it. Completely and utterly rejects it. We have to ask why. Why would a business owner reject a system that is mathematically guaranteed to increase efficiency, reduce errors, lower staff turnover, and ultimately increase his own profits?
Because it threatens his kingdom. It threatens his role as the prison guard.
Yes. The author realizes a terrifying reality about toxic management, which serves as the ultimate thesis for the entire piece. Sometimes, logic, efficiency, and profit are simply less important to a boss than their own psychological dysfunction.
Let that sink in for a second. The boss would actually rather make less money if it means he gets to keep hurting people.
If QuietBeef's system is implemented and it runs perfectly, the manager is no longer needed to constantly surveil, micromanage, and punish. The clunky staff he loves to mock are suddenly highly productive. He loses his power trip.
He loses his whole identity.
Exactly. The chaos was never a bug in his business model. It was the feature he valued most. He prefers a highly inefficient workplace because the chaos provides the exact environment he needs to play God. Like the Pythagoreans drowning the man who brought them the truth, the manager grounds QuietBeef's system because it threatens his dysfunctional reality.
It is the ultimate heartbreaking realization that you cannot fix a broken system if the person running it wants it to be broken. You cannot use logic to cure a psychological disease in your boss.
And that is the exact conclusion QuietBeef arrives at. The author realizes that trying to fix this business is a waste of their own life.
So the author quits.
You walk away.
The text ends with QuietBeef leaving the Tunchy coconut shop, suddenly facing the incredibly mundane and frustrating struggle of filling out complicated unemployment insurance applications.
Which is never fun.
Never. But there is this profound moment of clarity amid all the frustration. The author refuses to view their time there as a total failure. They reflect on the systems they tried to build, the workers they tried to help, and they just say, I did what I could. Some things failed, some things worked.
It is a moment of radical acceptance. You cannot control the pathology of your boss, but you can control the integrity of your own work.
But the piece ends on a vow. QuietBeef vows never to sell their time so cheaply again. They realize that a life spent trying to fix unfixable people, a life spent absorbing the toxic waste of someone else's fragile ego just for a paycheck is a wasted life. As they look toward the future, they explicitly state that they are prioritizing their mental health and the quality of their final years over trying to change the unchangeable.
It is a powerful rejection of the whole hustle culture myth that you must endure endless suffering to prove your worth as an employee. QuietBeef is saying, your peace of mind, your brain resources, the quality of your life, these are infinitely more valuable than optimizing a toxic manager's dysfunctional kingdom.
It is an incredible journey. I mean, from a venting session about a coworker pointing at a computer screen to a deep framework for neurodiversity, all the way to a philosophical stance on the value of human life. Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you, our listener, to mull over as we wrap up this discussion.
What's the thought?
We spend so much time in our careers reading books on how to optimize our workflows, how to be better communicators, how to manage up, and how to build better systems. We buy into the idea that if we just work harder, communicate clearer, and build a better spreadsheet, we can fix our workplace. But I want you to think about QuietBeef's framework and then look at your current challenges at work. Are you trying to plant a beautiful, thriving garden in soil that is intentionally poisoned by the person who owns the land? Are you fighting a problem of efficiency where a new system might actually help? Or are you fighting someone else's deep-seated psychological dysfunction? Because if the person in charge prefers the chaos, all the maps and manuals in the world won't save you. You might just need to stop planting, pack up your tools, and find healthier soil.
If you enjoyed this, smash the like button, give this video some hype to help it reach more people, and hit subscribe so you never miss an upload. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next video.